Seems legit. Hello Legitimates and welcome back to my channel. Today I am making these fabulous wrap pants. I am obsessed, which is why I'm parading around like this. But they are super fun, and this is the perfect project for anyone that's never made clothing before and wants to give it a go. You can see the elastic waist is amazing, so let me show you how to make them. Alright, so this is the fabric that we're going to use, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the raw edges and fold it in half because it's non-directional. If this was directional, you would have to cut twice, but since it's random leopard print, it is in fact non-directional, and so I can cut both at the same time. So we're just going to lay it down, making sure that the edges line up. Obviously that's the important part. Edge, edge. Probably should have done this inside where I have more space, but anyway, it's fine. Alright, so this is my rayon, and this is my pattern piece. So I was gifted this pattern from somebody that works at Spotlight, but this is the entire piece. So this is the crutch, and I've written back and front on there for my own personal knowledge, and we're just gonna put this on the fabric halfway like that. Now these are slightly on an angle, and then this part here should be fairly straight. Alright, so that is the pants. So now we're just going to cut it out. I like to move around while I'm cutting. And this is obviously a very loose pattern. So if you've got fabric and it's a little bit short or a little bit skinny or whatever, like, it'll be fine. It just means you'll have a slightly less overlap if you have to make them a bit shorter. Alright. I always prefer to cut in bigger areas so that I can get around everything better, but that's okay. Work our way around. So this side here is the back. I'm just going to get on top of it. It'll be much easier to cut. Don't be afraid to sit on your project. If you have a big enough table, obviously a table's better. But it's not what I've got. Now, since I'm doing a different waistband anyway, I am just going to cut this off pretty much at the edges. And again, I like to work my way around projects. But these will be really comfortable to sew in during summer. I don't like sewing in shorts because I stick to my chair, and my chair started to crack because it's old, just very unfortunate. The vinyl's going, so I either need to get a new chair or patch it, or I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But until that problem is actually solved, wearing these pants will be lovely during summer. Ugh, it's really hard to get in the corners. Sometimes you can shift it, so I'm just going to pull it that way just a little bit so that I can actually get it. Now, better idea probably would have been to pin it and then shift it, but it's fine. Wrap pants are quite forgiving in whatever you're doing to them, so I'm really not all that phased. Right, these little bits here are going to be the rubbish. Now, if you've got an overlocker, we're going to do probably an overlocking thing, but you can make these pants without it. It just means you've got to French seam some stuff. Okay, there we go. I know that looks like a lot. They are my pants. So there's two pieces that are identical. This little bit here will be rubbish, And this leftover piece here, you could make into scrunchies, headband. I don't know what else. We'll leave it there and I'll figure it out another time. Let's go to the sewing machine. Right, we're now at the sewing machine, and I have off to the side here my overlocker that I have not plugged in, which is fine. Just unplug that one, plug that one in. All right. So I'm just going to show you here. The easiest way to make these is to just overlock all the edges right now before we start sewing. Alright, so here we go. I have got a skinny foot on. I'm using a size 14 needle, and I'm using just normal sewing thread. So the top is Vardman and the bobbin is actually some overlocking thread. We're also going to need some shearing elastic, shearing, however you say it. And obviously the pattern pieces. Now, because they've been overlocked, life is about to get a lot easier for us. So the first thing we want to do is lay this one right sides up and the other one right sides down and stitch the crutch, because that's really the only place we're actually going to stitch it together. So here's the crutch and the crutch. Now I'm going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but you can literally do any seam allowance that makes you happy, because they're wrap pants and they are like not a one size fits most, but like they're quite forgiving in the sewing department. So I'm going to line up this top edge. Now I'm not going to pin it just because who can be bothered, but I am going to stitch and back stitch. So I'm on a 2.5 stitch length because I want nice little stitches so it holds. And we're just going to move around the curve. Now the hardest part with sewing curves in clothing is you don't want to stretch the fabric when you get onto that angle. It is very easy to do, which is why so many people use pins, but I'm just determined not to today. Don't ask me why, I have no idea. I feel like what I feel like. Right. So now that I'm about halfway, I'm going to come to this other end and I'm going to line up the raw edge, because we did cut these perfectly even. And so then I'm just going to use my hands like pins. Now, if you were not using an overlocker, you could French seam these. So that's where you put the wrong sides together, stitch, trim off the excess, and then flip it back over and stitch the raw edges inside. Nothing wrong with that plan, it just takes longer, and I like this one. Okay, so now, weirdly enough, we're kind of nearly finished. If you follow that seam, you now have a back and a front, and they will start to look like pants. But we're not done. So now all I would need to do is hem all the edges. If you were doing actual wrap pants, once you hem this edge, you could also add ties. But because I'm doing the elastic top, it's just quicker, easier, and comfier. So they technically are wrap pants, but they're also kind of not. So because I've overlocked everything, I am just going to fold it over once and top stitch it. But you could have also done a roll hem. The reason I liked the overlocker is because it's made this line more smooth, because you saw my cutting was really dodgy, and I knew that I did it dodgily and it didn't matter because I overlocked it and made that kind of more straight and even. So we're just going to fold under about 1/4 inch, and I'm just going to eyeball it. And then I'm going to hold it, try not to pull on it too much, and just stitch it down, because we want nice edges. You can also see that the rayon is quite slippery. It keeps trying to fall off the table. It does take a minute to get used to. The first project I made with rayon was an absolute disaster and I threw it out. It just takes practice and patience like everything. But I have faith that you can do it. So I'm literally now going to hem every raw edge that's left. I'm also going to cut off the tail from the overlocking. Some people tuck that in. There is no right or wrong answer. Do it however you want. As I get closer to this edge, and I'm not sure if you can see from the angle. Here we go. I'll do it here. So I'm going to fold it over, and then I'm going to fold this end up to do like a corner. And then that way I don't have to stop. I can just pivot. Love a good pivot. Needle down, press a foot up, twist, next edge. This is a lot of simple sewing. This would be a great first pair of, first article of clothing ever. They're very forgiving. You can't really stuff it up. And they're comfy. Now, in this middle seam, I'm actually going to open it up flat and then fold it down so that there's no bulk in any one particular area. It will also keep it open for when we do our shearing, if this is in fact the top, which I'm pretty sure it is. This is also a good place to practice your speed sewing if you are an intermediate sewer. I'm going to get closer to the edge and then I'll fold it in, because as we saw before, folding it earlier doesn't necessarily help. Make sure you keep your fingers out of the way. Needle down, press a foot up, pivot everything. And try not to stretch the rayon. It does have a little bit of give, and we don't want to warp the shape if you can help it. So while I'm holding it firm, I'm also not pulling super tight on it. I'm just doing it in sections. You could also iron this in place. Would ultimately take longer in total time-wise, but it probably would be much quicker sew if you've already ironed everything where you need it to sit. I have to keep stopping every few inches to readjust. So then again, we're going to get close to this edge. I'm going to fold it over. You could also fold it the other way. So you fold the first one and then this last one. That might have more stickability. And then again, pivot. Grab the excess fabric. Make sure that the bulk of it's on the table so it's not pulling over either. You could have also done a roll hem for all of this, like a nice thick roll hem would have been quite pretty as well. And the next bit. And the next bit. Cut off the tail again. Get closer to the edge. I'm going to fold the other side and then this one over the top. I'm finding that that's easier to stitch up to and over. Now obviously these will need an iron. I need to clean my iron before I do such things. Even without an iron though, they should be very comfortable. But cleaning my iron is on today's agenda. I just wanted to make these pants first while I was inspired. So this fabric I actually got from clearance at Spotlight. I think it was like $6 a meter. So these are $18 pants. Which, I don't know if you know that, but it's pretty cheap for Australia. And they'll be comfortable, and it's a natural fiber, so you won't be sweaty. I live in a tropical climate, for those that are new here, and it will not be sweaty to wear these for summer. A lot of the clothes at the shops are all polyester, so while they are nice and cheap, they also are very sweaty to wear, and nobody wants that. And then again, we're going to open this seam. So as you can tell, we can go around the entire pair of pants in one continuous seam, which I really, really like. Open that seam up, fold her down, over we go. So we've just done front versus back. And then after I've done all this, I'm actually going to sew a tag on to help me know which way is the front and the back. It's obviously not necessary if you're making them for yourself, but I'm going to do it because it'll be so much easier to look for the tag, put it at the back, put your pants on, rather than constantly looking at the center to see which one's deeper and then put it at the back. I'm a very lazy person. I don't want to have to overthink putting on a pair of pants. I just want to be able to be like, tag, back, done. Another way to combat that would be to put in some pockets if you wanted to. I don't really like pockets in wrap pants personally, but each your own. Alright, fold it, fold it. We're nearly there. We shouldn't have too many more edges left. In fact, this is in fact the last one. See, I can feel the end coming. I'm also making sure this stuff, even though it's thin, it tricks me a lot into thinking that there's other stuff under it. So you'll see with the overlocking, I did speed it up, but I had to keep checking to make sure nothing was kind of tucking underneath. Because there is nothing worse than sewing the wrong bit and then having to unpick it because I was being careless. Alright, I'm going to cut off these tails at the start. Tuck them under. And then backstitch when we get to the end. So now everything is hemmed and fabulous. Now I know it doesn't look like much now, but once it's ironed, it will be fabulous, I promise. And so then we're going to take the crotch section and hold it front to back. One side's always deeper than the other. I don't know why, it just is. But what we're going to do is we're going to put those seams together and then they turn into pants. They're very, very large pants. But very, very pants. So this right here is the back. So I'm just going to put, I'm actually going to put a needle there just because I don't have a pin. And then I'm just going to grab my tag and I will come right back. Alright, so I have a little Seems Legit fabric tag that I got made forever ago. So all I'm going to do is where the needle is, I'm going to sew it. I'm actually going to have to unpick. Bugger. That's right. I'm only going to unpick like 6 stitches and then I'm going to slide the tag up under there and then stitch it back down. Probably should have done this first, but half a dozen stitches is not, in fact, the end of the world when it comes to unpicking. I'm going to lift my needle up. Come back here. Try and center it as best I can. And then I'm just going to start over the old stitches, stitch, back stitch, and then go over, and then stitch and back stitch. So it's locking in both old and new stitching. Now this will all be slightly gathered as well, so we don't really need to worry about that. So now at the side seam, so this is our leg. What I want to do is I want to overlap it. So I'm going to put the back over the front and I'm going to do the same amount on both sides, but I'm thinking 3 inches. So I'm going to measure up 3 inches and then put this one over the top like that so that there's an overlap just a little bit. And then I'm going to stitch those together while I'm holding them. Now I do recommend back to front, but you could also put front over back. It probably doesn't really matter. Just as long as we do it the same on both sides, I think that's probably what's more important. So I'm just having a little bit of an overlap. Now you still got to remember these pants look huge. There's method to my madness. You could also do this and then fold it over and create a channel for some elastic. If elastic is more your jam. It's not mine, but that doesn't mean it's not yours. Now I'm going around to make sure that there are no twists in any of this. And then, so again, we're going to go 3 inches line that up, overlap it, and I've done back over the top of front, but again, like I said, you can do it the other way, probably won't even matter or register. Trim off those tails. I do love these snips, they are fantastic. Alright, so now we have a really big pair of pants. I don't know if you can see that, but they go from there all the way to there. Looks ridiculous, but you just got to trust the process. So now I'm going to take out my bobbin, and we're going to get an empty bobbin, and we're going to take our shearing elastic. Now, it's probably pronounced shirring, but I'm Australian and I call it shearing, and I don't even care. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold the tail. We're going to just have a little tail, and we're going to hold it against it, and then I'm going to hand wind this on without pulling on it. We don't want any tension. We just want to make sure that it's not loose, but we don't want any tight tension. We're not trying to stretch the elastic yet. The machine will do that for us. So I'm just going to wind up a bobbin. Now you're going to need several of these bobbins. I'm not even going to lie. You can't do a project with just one. Never have been able to. You need at least 2 on a large machine. 3 on domestics usually. Also depends on how many layers of overlapping you wish to do. See, because that's relevant as well. So now that I've got this much on, I'm just actually going to cut that tail off so it's out of my way, and then continue to wind. So again, no tension. This is the opposite of what we want to do with normal thread. We're also going to put our little stitch length all the way up to a 4. Now this machine goes up to a 5, so it's like a 1 size down from the maximum. You also don't want to overwind it because it can quite easily get caught, and that's frustrating. So it's pretty full. And then I'm going to put it in, and this is where you put your tension and you pull it to go through there like that. And you need a tail to make sure that it'll be able to be picked up. And then we're just going to do 1 full rotation to pick up that tail. There she is. You want them both hanging out. And you can start wherever you want. I am going to start at the back tag. Oh, where is the tag? Have I lost my tag? My tag fell out. Well, that's just fantastic, isn't it? So I'm going to start at this seam here. I am going to do a 1/4 inch from the top. I'm going to stitch, and I am going to back stitch. And it's going to sound like it's got issues. And I don't know if you can see, but it's already starting to gather. We want to give it no tension. It's doing its own thing at this point. When we get to this overlap, we want to try and keep it even. See how it's gathering all by itself? I love this technique. It's also less harsh. If you find when you buy elastic that you get like a mark and it cuts in and you hate it and it makes you feel fat, because been there, done that, this solves that problem. But we just have to keep an eye on the bobbin because it will eventually run out. So I'm doing a 1/4 inch from the top edge, and I'm going all the way around. Maybe I'll put the tag on later because it was going to get stuck into here anyway. And then when we get back to the start, which is right here, by the way, we're going to veer off so that we can stitch next to the original lines. So we're basically going to create a spiral. So I'm going to start about 2 inches out, and I'm going to just start working my way down so I can get next to that other line. And then I'm going to hold this flat and then stitch. And then when we get to the overlap, you want to make sure that the overlap is sitting flat as well. I've made several of these pants and I love them. You just have to promise to trust the process. Although you probably saw them at the start of the video because I haven't done that bit yet. Alright, we're just going to keep turning it around and around. And you want 4 to 5 layers as a minimum. And it gives you a bit of a waistband without the harsh reality of an actual waistband. Kind of nice. And I'm just making sure that it's smooth on this side. I don't care about the other side. But you'll need, yeah, at least 4 to 5 lines. And I just went over the original spot. But because I've already started that angle, you don't even really have to think about where the start and finish is anymore. Because it just continues on. So again, lining up that back layer with this top layer. Making sure it's smooth. Stitch over all the layers. You might also find that it won't gather as well over the double layers just because there's more fabric. Don't stress about that either. Still needs to be done. I'm using the size of my foot as my guide. So I've put on a foot of how far apart you want the elastic. Very helpful. Now I am keeping an eye on because I've already done a few layers. So there's a very good chance that I'm going to run out of this shearing elastic soon. You only get so much on a roll. Again, I'm back to that side, so I'm going to hold it flat. Stitch it down. Continue on. And you can see now, it's really giving me some gathers. It just sounds a bit weird in the bobbin. Not gonna lie, the bobbin does sound weird compared to normal, but I wouldn't worry too much about that. It'll be fine. Make sure you untangle all of this, because as I spin it round and round, it gets looped on itself. And you absolutely have to stitch from the top. Now, if you are doing an orange one, I do suggest picking the same color thread. So that it's not noticeable, unless you want to do it as an accent. You can get shearing elastic in a lot of different colors. I've got it in black and white. I find that personally that's enough. But in Spotlight specifically, they've got a whole section, but it's quite expensive for the colored ones. So make sure you really, really want the colored ones before you go purchasing them. Because let's be honest, you're not going to see it under my waistband. I want about an inch-ish, inch and a half of a waistband. So I'm just going to keep going around and round until I've got the desired thickness. I find that much should be enough to hold them in place. This much is not enough yet. But I'm also going to run out of bobbin thread or bobbin elastic soon. So I'm just trying to keep an eye on that. Make sure that I don't overdo it. Twisted the pants around a few more times than necessary, so as I continue to adjust it, I won't have to do it as much, I guess. There's the layer of the sides where it overlaps. Now you could do more of an overlap if you're worried about the sides gaping too much. You can put them around your body and then pin it where you want and maybe just have them slightly larger than your frame, if that's more your jam. There is no right and wrong for this. I want quite flowy, almost dress-like pants, like skirt-like pants, which is why I've only done a little overlap. But because of the size of them, I could have in fact done way more. Definitely going to need a few more layers. So that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm on layer 5 now, so I'm probably going to need more like 10 or 12. But it's now just a time game. It's easy enough to do. You're just sewing a continuous spiral, really. Okay, hear that? I just ran out of bobbin. I felt it and I heard it. But that's okay. So far, now I've got this. Isn't that fun looking? So you'll have this little bit, but it kind of stretches out when you wear them. Let's do another bobbin. I've got an extra one here in case I run out of this one, but it should be all right. These are seriously the easiest pair of pants you'll ever make. You don't have to worry about channels or seams lining up or anything. That one crotch seam and that's it. Everything else is just hemming. Now, if you were being super lazy, you could do like a roll hem on your overlocker and roll hem everything. And then you wouldn't even need to fold it over and stitch it. You could do like a contrasting color, make it look fantastic. I don't know why, but I've got orange with black stitching in my brain. I don't know in what universe I've decided orange and black is my new jam, but in my head it looks amazing. You could also embroider the side of the pants before, well, not even before you make them, because there's no seam to get in the way. You could embroider the pants. Alright, so that's probably enough there. Chop. In we go. You don't have to change the tension, or at least I never have, and it's always worked out for me. But each to their own. You're just going to make sure the tail comes through though, that's pretty important. You need it out to make sure it's going to actually sew. And then we just need to go to wherever I was, where I ran out. So you just track it, which is here. So it literally just stops. But I'm going to sew over and backstitch over like 1/4 of an inch of the old one, so that it locks the old one in so it won't come out over time, and it also means I can wash these in a washing machine. And then we're just going to continue on. But I am continuously making it straight where I'm sewing. And you can hear that it's working, because if this was normal thread, it's got the sound that it would be tangled. Always a fun one. I went over a side seam, so I'm just lining it up to make sure it's all straight. Now you could also put these gathers further apart. I personally like them closer together. So mine are like 1/8 of an inch apart, but you can go all the way up to like 3/8. It means you wouldn't need as much elastic and it would be less sewing, but these pants will be more secure. So do whatever suits you best. Maybe start off with my plan and then for your next pair do something different if you don't like it. Alright, so I'm also back to the start here, so I'm just going to cut off that tail so it's out of my way, and the top tail so I don't accidentally sew it in the bin, and we're off. I'm not going to do too much more because I don't want too big of a line at the top. But we are getting close. So maybe this will be my last line, and then I'll try them and see how they go, and I can always adjust them. I can always come back and just keep doing more lines. So this is where I started. So this is where I'm going to finish. I'm going to just backstitch, pull it out. Pulling it out is always a tricky bit because the elastic doesn't really want to give. Alright, let's try these on. Alright, so I've just put these over my skirt, so we don't need to worry too much about that. But you can have them, so my belly button's here, so you can have them up higher, and that's like crutch all the way up, or you can kind of have them down and looser. It's got a split, so my leg will pop out, but when they fall down flat, because of that overlap that I did, they're not gaping from the top. So even though I'm walking, unless I actually stick my leg out, and even then my underwear ends kind of up here. So you're not going to see my underwear or my bathers or whatever you got on. And so that's the amount of elastic. If I did these in a different fabric, like more of a linen, you could also wear a belt and then hide this top bit. But I kind of like it. And the splits are both coming forward like that. So this piece, if you had it done it the other way, this piece would be more likely to kind of come out, which we don't want. And I'm doing this in a dress so that you can just see. But I think these are going to be so comfy. They're so lightweight. They're not even touching my legs. So I'm not going to feel hot and sticky during my crazy heat, which will be this afternoon. I can wear these to school pickup, and I'm not worried. Like, it'd have to be a big gust of wind to be able to like actually expose my butt. But that's it, really. And see how big they are? So you can wear them, you can make them as Christmas pants. So comfortable. There'll be no marks from elastic. They will fit you even if you're having a bad day. You'll still feel good about yourself. Because look at that. That's a lot of excess. If you were more modest than me, you can just overlap a few more inches. Because there's so much room, you have that ability. So if you wanted to do more than just a 3-inch overlap, you could do a 6-inch and have it like properly overlapped. And then when you walked, maybe only the very, very bottom would open out. But I kind of like them like this. So anyway, that's how you make wrap pants. They are awesome. I do recommend them. If you've never made clothing before and you want to think about doing it, you should do it. Another thing, because I've now finished the elastic, what you actually need to do is steam it. And I'm going to show you that right now before we finish up. Now that I know that I've got enough, because again, I was a bit guessing. But now I know that there's enough, let's go and steam the final elastic and I'll show you why. Alright, so we're at my ironing board. I've got the elastic closest to me and you can see it's already pretty good. You also need to have an iron that does steam. Mine's having a moment. Okay, so we're good. So see that? Quite a lot of steam. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hover over it and watch it shrink up. Are we ready? I don't know if you saw that, but that literally just moved. So what we do is we steam the elastic to help it shrink in. I'm not sure if you guys can see that on camera, but I can see it here. It just shrinks it a little bit more. It makes the elastic grip back in. So I would be doing that maybe every wash or every second wash. You don't have to unnecessarily iron them all, but just shrink that elastic back in so it doesn't lose its stretch. I don't know why that works. Something about the water shrinking it. I don't know. But I like to give it a good shrinking. You can see now it's not shrinking anymore, so we're done. It's also hot, so be careful. It is steam after all. But yeah, that's pretty much it. They are now ready to wear. And for those of you that can't be bothered putting the tag back on, you just look inside. Hold on, let me angle the camera. Alright, let's look into the pants. So if you have a look here, one side scoops back further than the other. So this is the back. See how it scoops further in, whereas this front part goes more straight up? That's how you tell which one's the front and the back. So again, if you wanted to, you could put a tag there. I'll probably just check it now. Don't know, I can be bothered putting a tag in. But that's how you can tell without having to actually put them on and check. Although they're so baggy, it probably wouldn't necessarily matter if you put them on backwards anyway. But there you go, guys. Thank you for joining me. I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.